Do you dread the full moon? Tired of waking up in the woods with shredded clothes, broken furniture, and fur everywhere? Sounds like you need full moon insurance. With full moon insurance, we've got you covered. Literally. Whether it's torn shirts, clawed up couches, or those unfortunate incidents with your neighbor's livestock, our comprehensive plans ensure you will never have to foot the bill for your wild nights. Sign up now using promo code POSTMORTEM to get 20% off your first full moon cycle. It's the perfect plan for listeners of our show who know that accidents happen at least once a month. Full moon insurance, because staying human isn't always in the cards, but staying insured should be. Welcome to Movie Postmortem, where we dissect films of all kinds, whether they're good, bad, or those guilty pleasures we just can't quit. I'm Reggie Hill, and I'm joined by my nephew, Isaiah Brown. Together, we're here to examine what worked, what didn't, and why we keep coming back for more. So grab your popcorn because no movie is safe from the scalpel on Movie Postmortem. Okay, welcome to Movie Postmortem, and today we're going to cover Wolfman, a new film that's out in theaters right now.
Yeah, literally just hit theaters yesterday, and so we were like, it'd be a great episode if we get something that's like incredibly recent, isn't it?
Yeah, instead of doing old movies all the time, we wanted to do something that you could actually watch this weekend if you want. We are excited that this is our first, what I'm going to call a coast to coast screening. And so, for those of you who don't know, I am living in Los Angeles and my nephew Isaiah is in Cincinnati. And so, we both watched this movie practically at the same time because we synced up the theater schedules so he could watch it in Cincinnati and I could watch it in Los Angeles at the same time. And we both just got back from the theaters and we're going to give you our take and opinion on it right now.
Yeah, literally got our mics just sitting outside the theater recording, syncing up
Yeah.
our watches and everything.
And so let me start off with a short summary of Wolfman. In 1995, a hiker disappears in the woods of Oregon, and he hints at a strange virus that is tied to the wildlife and a disease that the locals call Face of the Wolf. A young Blake Lowell and his father Grady encounter a mysterious creature in the woods. Cut to 30 years later, Blake, now kind of struggling with his family, his wife and young daughter, they go back to his childhood home after getting a report that his father, Grady, has died. After relocating to his father's home, Blake and his family are attacked by a creature, and Blake is scratched, triggering a horrible transformation. Now, as always on Movie Postmortem, we are going to dive into the nuts and bolts of this film, including spoilers. And so, if you don't
Yeah.
want to be spoiled, not that I think you can be for this film, then watch the film and come back.
Okay, first, before we go into our nitty gritty, our good bads and what we'd fix, why don't we just give our first impressions upon leaving the theater?
My first impression upon leaving the theater was this was just bad. I understood why you would release this movie in January as opposed to, say, Halloween in October. It was a bad film. And I laughed at the end of the film because throughout the film, you don't actually see the title until the very end. They kind of spell out the title as the different letters in the cast, crew, and director's name kind of pop up on screen. And the director Lee Wanell, the first thing that pops up on screen after the movie ends is the letter L, and I thought, yep, that's what this is. This movie, you took an L with this.
I, my first impressions on leaving the theater was it wasn't overly bad, it wasn't overly good, it was just just decent, I guess.
Yeah,
It
that I
was
would agree with that. I don't think this is a movie where it's even fun bad. It's just there. It's barely a plot. There are only like maybe five total people in the entire film. And so I also agree that it just seems like there's just not enough content really even on the screen to judge. And I kind of walked away thinking, that's it? Like there's nothing more to this?
exactly. I had that exact same thought. The moment the credits came on, I was like, wait, I feel like we're missing a huge chunk of the movie here.
Yeah, like it feels almost like an opening act to what the actual film should be by the time it actually ends. And so I was very underwhelmed by this film.
Yeah, that was kind of disappointing. You know what it feels like? It feels like if you're watching like a good horror movie and they have like a generic like horror movie on in the background.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
This
what it
feels
feel
like
like.
stock footage of like a better film would be showing like of a Wolfman film.
Yeah. Initial like thoughts of it. This is like, well, first off, I feel like there's a huge chunk of story that was cut out of here because things just happen.
Yes, I agree. It is a very like kind of tight. It's about, probably 1 hour and maybe 40 minutes. It zips
Yeah.
by really quickly, but I agree. Like there was a lot of plot points that I felt they never even attempted to cover.
Oh yeah. Especially in the first like few minutes where it just jumps 30 minutes, like 30 years in the future. I was like, there's nothing important that happened in between that time skip.
No, exactly. Nothing we need to actually cover at all. So yeah, just to skip to 30 years later. And so yeah, it's a very quick film. Uh, but I also feel like if I had to compare, and that's what we're here for in Movie Postmortem, I think this was really a very bad Wolfman film in general. I really felt like I was comparing it kind of the whole time, and maybe that's bad, to The Wolfman, which starred Benicio del Toro. It came out about 15 years ago. And that film was R-rated. It was really good in my opinion. And I felt with this, I was like, wow, they didn't even try. I really felt like this was a bad Wolfman film. It would be a bad Wolfman TV show.
Okay, here's where I'm probably gonna differ from you because if you're a regular listener on this podcast, you already know I deep dove down into the five movies of Twilight. And so this coming from that pile of garbage is well, it's a better Wolfman than what they did in Twilight. So that's a well, congratulations, hand clap.
Yeah, that's something that should be in the marketing commercials now. Better werewolf than Twilight.
Yeah. Okay. And this is probably where my opinions might differ from some people. I didn't hate this movie. I didn't hate it. I mean, I didn't really like it, but I didn't hate it either. Like I said earlier, it's just an okay movie. This isn't like Twilight levels of bad, and it's just not like this isn't like Transformers 1 levels of good. It's just barely above bad, I guess.
Yeah, that's how I felt the audience who was with me react as well. It was like, okay, that's it. The biggest thing I could say, like, I felt bad when I was leaving the theater because I was running late before I, saw the film. So I wanted to walk to the theater and walk back and get some exercise, but I didn't have time. So I drove. So I was thinking, man, I missed out on like getting some exercise to see this. So I'm not even gaining, any
Yeah.
exercise here.
Yeah, I can guarantee I was probably I think I might have been more engaged in the black dude behind me, where I literally heard him while he was leaving. It's like, man, that was terrible.
We'll take a break and then we'll come back with our further discussion on Wolfman on Movie Postmortem.
Yeah, we'll be right back.
Okay, we're back. And so let's dive into some of our causes of death or causes of celebration. So, Isaiah, I'll let you start.
Okay, first off, before we just hammer that nail in with the causes of death, because there are quite a few in this movie, something that he might not agree with me with, depending on how he feels about this. A cause of celebration. I felt I liked how they did the lycanthropy in this movie. Not the design or anything. I liked the transformation, like the process. I did enjoy that.
I will agree with you. I actually liked that. I did.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when there's the scene where after he's got bit or scratched or whatever, and his senses are slowly developing into being more heightened. Like a spider on the wall. It sounds like the house is coming down to him now. I like those low details.
I thought the spider scene was one of the dumbest things I've ever seen just because of the reveal it was a spider. So you see him reacting to having this enhanced sense of hearing, and you know he's tracking something. It's going to be small. Maybe I thought maybe it's a rat or a bird, but for it to be a spider, I thought was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I agree, the scenes depicting how he's reacting to these senses and showing, him not understanding human
Yeah.
language anymore, those were really well done.
Yeah, I would say the spider by itself, that is just But I'm saying like I'm using that as a reference like overall. And
That was
overall the process I did like that.
No, I agree with you 100%. That was a cause of celebration for me. I thought that was better than it needed to be, and I hadn't seen another film show, both sides of this story because practically like a few minutes after he gets, scratched and starts to turn, he can't even speak anymore. And so
Yeah,
you have to really convey that, and I thought they had a couple of clever ways of showing that.
yeah. Especially the scene where he's not that far in, but he's still a little bit in, where he's like, "What's that smell?" And he goes in to see this rotten meat and like jerky in the closet, and the woman just has like, and the woman she didn't react to it anyway either because it's like, as you're thinking like, oh, he must be like really hiding, has a good sense of smell here because this meat is literally rotten in this freezer, and she doesn't like, she's not reacting at all.
Yeah, I felt that that was really a bad scene because I got what they were going for, but I was like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. They're right there. There's no way she wouldn't have smelled that. And so that was where sometimes their depiction of his abilities kind of didn't really add up. There was a scene at the end that was supposed to be filled with tension where like the lights go out and he's in the house and you get the idea like it's supposed to be he's in the dark, they're in the dark, and he has like night vision and he can track them and they don't know where he is, but it didn't work because they're in such a small space. It's like a kitchen where I'm like, they would know he's there. So it,
Right.
it had no tension at all.
Yeah. Well, we're still in the cause of celebration, man. Let's
Yeah,
really
well,
be cool
yeah.
of it.
Hey, and we have to figure out what they call it. They call the celebration. It also has bad things in it. So yes, like I was using that to bridge from like, yeah, they were great scenes about, how he
Yeah.
was getting his powers. I thought that was a bad one, so I just
Yeah.
snuck that in.
Well, how about this? Let's take what I said and round it off like this. Wolfman, cause of celebration. There were some interesting ideas here. How about that?
Yes, and I agree. Like there are so many ways to depict this, and I like the fact that they're centering it on like it's a disease. It's something that people can be infected by. It's something that they treat like an extreme version of, rabies or, something like that.
That's a good idea. I wish we would have had more of this instead of the rest of this movie.
Yeah, and so let's probably now dig into the causes of death.
The characters are just big old nothing burgers.
Yes, I did not care about anyone in this story.
Yeah. Like the only one that I somewhat cared for was the dad because he was the only one that felt like a character almost.
Yes, I agree. And that was one of the weirdest things when I watched the whole film. I felt, well, we start the film out in 1995 with Blake's father, Grady and him. Why didn't we just stay there? There's nothing about the story beats, the plot that you couldn't have done with the original setting. And his father had the most interesting character. So I didn't understand what we gained by jumping ahead 30 years.
Yeah. And also with the characters being nothing burgers, they make incredibly stupid decisions here in this movie for some reason.
Yeah, and one of the things I hate is kind of ragging on kid actors because it's not their fault.
Yeah.
But the
It's
daughter,
not it's not the fault of the actor. It's usually
yeah,
the
it's
fault of the
not the fault of
director.
the actor. It's always the writing and the direction, and the daughter character was just terrible in this film.
She was just there.
It was even worse than that, in my opinion, because of two scenes. One where her father literally has undergone, half of his Wolfman transformation, which we'll talk about.
Oh,
And
I know which scene you're talking about.
she's not afraid of him. She's still trying to connect with him with the, little games that they played earlier. And I felt this is not how a child would react to their father looking like a monster at this point. And then later at the film, she gets so far to the precocious child character, no spoilers here. The Wolfman dies at the end because the Wolfman dies at the end of every Wolfman film. When the girl has to turn to her mother and say, he wants this to end, giving her mother permission to shoot him dead. I was like, I just don't believe a child would react and say any of these things. It was just so stupid.
Okay, another cause of death of this movie. I feel like it has a strange pacing issue. I will say there are scenes that should not be as long as they are, and scenes that are too quick for what they are. Especially this is a scene that happens like a little bit past the beginning, but midway through, where they're on the truck ride where they pick up this random guy. Even after the wife was like, "No, don't pick him up," he's like, "No, it's fine." I'm just like, "What?" And
Yeah.
they're driving there for a little bit. They're having a little odd conversation, and I'm in the seat just like, just something happened.
Yes, I would agree. The pacing was so bad that horror films are not honestly my favorite genre. It's probably my least favorite genre because I don't like jump scares. I don't like tension. I felt completely fine watching this film because it's not scary at all, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm the horror guy over here, and I also agree. There was there was only one scene in the movie where that kind of got like a gross moment for me, where he's like clawing and biting at his like gross arm. That got that it felt cheap, but it did get like ugh out of me, you know?
Yes, I agree. And we can talk about that. I might actually award them another cause of celebration later for it. But yeah,
Yeah,
I agree. The pacing, it was slow. It was the kind of very plodding along, and they spent too much time just going through very mundane actions like driving a truck or, just talking on like the ranch. And it just wasn't scary. And so like I feel like you can't have a scary movie without scares. And this
yeah.
didn't really have more than maybe two.
We have to talk about the big furry elephant in the room.
Yes. So let me go with that one. The biggest cause of death for this film, in my opinion, was the Wolfman design.
My first reaction when I saw it, I was like, that kind of looks like Winnie the Pooh from Blood and Honey.
I think that probably is scarier.
That should not be the first thing I thought of, but I couldn't get it out of my head.
I
I don't
felt
know if it was the lighting there or if it was just like that design they had on that shooting day, but it did not look that good.
so. The first thing I would say to our listeners to think about, you've seen posters and trailers for this film. You have not seen the Wolfman, and I understand why. They did a very realistic take or depiction of if a person had a disease that made them develop a dog-like snout and maybe, canine incisors and an underbite. The thing I thought about was that he just looks like a mangy man. He does
I was
not look like a
exactly.
wolf man.
This doesn't really look wolf-like.
He
It's like
doesn't even grow hair.
for all you listeners that have played The Quarry, which is a wolf werewolf themed decision game. This they look worse. The Wolfman in this looks worse than that. He looks very mangy. His nose is kind of he looks more like a ghoul or goblin than more like a wolfman.
Yeah, I agree. I kept thinking the whole time was like, oh, if I didn't know this was supposed to be Wolfman, it looked like he's just turning into like a zombie or
Yeah.
something.
First off, he's not even really a wolfman either. He's just like a beast man.
Yeah, he looks really gross. And honestly, what it reminded me of, and that's why I said like I could probably award them a call to celebration. They're really trying to embrace the body horror aspect by showing the physical transformation, how painful it is. You see his,
Yeah. How
teeth
painful and
falling out.
confusing it is and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
You see him gnawing on his like injuries on his arm, and like a
Trying
dog would
his
do.
trying his hardest to communicate to his family that I think I'm dying.
Yeah, and so for people who have seen, Jeff Goldblum classic movie The Fly, which I think does body horror better than any film, maybe outside of The Thing, that's what it reminded me of. It reminded me of like
Oh,
just looking at Jeff Goldblum in The Fly. Like, oh, like he looks gross. You get the idea that he's changing to something, but for a Wolfman film, I just wanted more.
yeah. I read so many comments of that on the drive home.
Oh
People
yeah,
talk
I haven't
comparing it
even
to the
read
fly.
anything about it, but that was the first thing I thought. I was like, oh, this is like The Fly. But again, I was disappointed. I want a wolf man. I want that type of
Like
impressive uh
exactly. And
transformation.
and if you're thinking like, oh, well, the Wolfman's too cheesy or whatever, they wouldn't be able to do it in live action or do it like justice. It's like, no, lean into it more because he needs to be a wolf man.
Yes, that's the thing where I felt it's so disappointing because you go to a Wolfman film to see a wolf man, and this film does not deliver one.
Give him bigger fangs, give him more fur, give him more like give him better claws than whatever the heck we got in the movie.
Yeah, so it's really like I thought like I've seen scarier homeless people than this guy. So
oh,
part of
even in
the
the movie, even in the movie,
exactly, there are other
there's
people that are
that
scarier.
homeless guy. Yeah.
Yeah, they run
No.
into a homeless guy in the city in the beginning of the film, and that guy was scarier than the Wolfman.
Yeah. And also with this Wolfman, we talked a little bit about the design, but let's get into the actual behaviors of this Wolfman.
Yes.
He the mixing between him turning and him still keeping his humanity is weird.
Yeah,
Because
and
there's
just
some scenes where he's full feral and some scenes where he's not.
Yeah, and there didn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to it, where you would think, okay, he's gonna lose more of his humanity as he goes through further through the transformation, but that's not how it's depicted. It just seems to be like random.
Yeah, it, like once we because once we get past like the climax of him turning to the Wolfman, where he's like shirtless, like mangy and all that stuff, and he's chasing after them, you think like, oh, he's gone full Wolfman here. They're gonna have to put him down. No, he somehow reels it back later, and he's like, okay, I'm still here. Put me down. And we're just like, I thought, what happened a moment ago?
Yeah, it makes no sense. And it's just like they depict him being so violent that he wants to kill them, but then he doesn't until like, oh, we just need him to try to kill them 10 minutes later. But earlier you see him biting throats and regurgitating fingers. And so he seems completely feral by that point. And
Yeah.
that's again, like, I don't understand other than they did not have enough victims for him to attack. Because again, at this point in the story, there are only four people, so he can't
Yeah.
kill anybody.
Yeah, that was a big. I feel like that's this movie's biggest mistake. There should have been more people to rack up a body count because isn't this an R-rated movie?
Yes, it's R-rated, but their decision to have this like in the isolation of Oregon means that there's literally nobody for him to attack. So I think that was part of the writing where you see him being feral, completely out of control, but he can't kill his wife and daughter because we need them to survive till the end. But there's no one else for him to interact with even.
Yeah, and also this is a scene that I this is a scene I do hate. It's the scene where he gets caught in a bear trap.
Yes, that was just
I hate
stupid.
that scene because we've just established that number one, he's super strong because he's the Wolfman. Correction, he's the quote unquote Wolfman.
I'm not calling it Wolfman. He's just Mangy Man now.
Yeah, Mange Man.
Mange
That's
Man, yeah.
better.
He's Mange Man, yeah.
Yeah, and so he's in the bear trap, and I think what they were trying to convey is that oh he's like feral and savage. He's like oh because what he does is when he gets caught in the bear trap is chew his leg off so he can get out of it, and I hated it because I'm just like we just established how strong he was a moment ago. So number one, how strong is his bear trap, or B, how stupid is he right now?
Yes, that's what I felt because they show him reaching like at the trap with his hand. So it's like the Wolf Man, or sorry, Mange Man remembers he has hands, but Mange Man decides to just chew his foot off and chase after his family, into the woods. And it was dumb because I just thought what we've depicted is that they're pretty easy to take down through regular means. So I would assume he would have just died of blood loss because they show him without a like lower half of one of his limbs.
Right, and
He can still run.
there's like no silver bullet angle with this either.
No, no, they don't
Something
address the lore at all.
something that the quarry did a whole lot better, leading actual silver to put these things down. And no, spoiler: Wolfman's Mange Man's dad just gets his throat ripped out and he's dead. Because I'm thinking like, there's no way he's dead off of that, right? And no, he's just dead.
Yes, I was expecting the same thing. I'm like, okay, this is where it gets good. No, he's just dead. And so that's the thing. Like, you want to make a werewolf film, but you don't want to embrace any of the lore. And I couldn't even tell you if there was a full moon in this film at all. They didn't really seem to address
I
that
didn't
part
even
either.
I didn't even bother to notice.
It just seems like there's a disease that causes people to get mangy. And
Yeah.
so they should just call this Mange Man. And so another, maybe we'll call it a cause of celebration or death. Maybe it splits right down the middle for me. I did think that the makeup effects were good. I don't like the final design choice, but they had a lot of practical effects. There's very little CGI here. And so I like that they were taking time to show some of the slowness of the process. I just didn't like where it ended up. Let's take a break and then we'll come back with our script stitch up. Are you afraid you have massive body odor? Don't worry, we've got you covered. Introducing Aerosol, the all over body deodorant that goes beyond. With Aerosol, you don't just spray your armpits, you spray your whole body. And your car, your office, your neighbor's yard. Heck, just spray it up in the air for good measure. Our scientists have proven that the more you spray, the fresher you stay. Why stop at just a few spritzes? Coat yourself from head to toe. Turn your cubicle into a vanilla scented paradise. And don't forget to spray down everybody around you. Your whole world should smell like aerosol all the time. For a limited time, we're offering our jumbo 5-gallon drum of aerosol perfect for hose downs or just filling up a sprayer backpack and misting everybody you see on your walk. Aerosol. If you can still smell anything else, you didn't use enough. Okay, we're back on Movie Postmortem, and now we will give some advice in our script stitch up. So, Isaiah, do
Yeah.
you want to start?
Yes. And for those of you that aren't familiar, this is our little moment where we discuss what we will have rewritten in this movie. What will we change to make it better? And not only what we change to make it a better movie, but what will we change to, fit our likes and needs personally?
Exactly.
First off, make a movie that's actually about the Wolfman.
Yes, I wanted to see Wolfman, not Mange Man.
Yeah, maybe that might be too broad of a stitch up here, but I feel like that's what's mainly wrong with this movie. This isn't the Wolfman. This is just Mange guy. And also, shouldn't he have had a whole lot of guns in his house?
Yes, that was the thing I didn't understand. At one point in the film, you see, the dad, he's walking through the house looking for something. I assumed he was going to look for one of the many guns that would be at that property, and he comes back with like a flashlight.
I was just like, I was like, both you and your dad, like early in the movie, you both had rifles. What happened? Where
The
are they
only
at?
the only other person we meet in Oregon has a rifle. So there are absolutely none at this guy who knows he lives in a territory filled with, werewolves, and he just doesn't have any firearms.
Here's something that we could fix in this movie, but I don't know how we do it. So I'm gonna pass this torch to you.
Okay.
How could we fix the family drama?
Yeah, that's where I think a big issue with this film, and one of the things that you need probably more than stitching to fix with the script is the unnecessary family drama, the unnecessary tension between the husband and the wife, which doesn't go anywhere. All you needed to happen was to have a reason for them to be in Oregon. And so all of the drama, all of the, uncertainty he has about being a stay-at-home dad and the tension between her and him, it didn't go anywhere. It's not necessary, especially in the film this short, where you just need to get them from point A to point B in order to deal with a werewolf. So I feel that these films, just by the nature of the wolf man, it's always usually about that inner aggression that every man has in him. And I feel that they didn't dwell on that. I think you take out all the family dynamic and give him, they try to establish that a little bit. Maybe he has a little bit of anger in him, but I didn't buy it. I didn't believe it. I didn't believe that that was part of who he had, even when he turned into, Mange Man. He didn't have
Oh,
that much aggression.
oh, absolutely. You are 100% right. If first off, what we have here, just completely scrap this and try it again. What we could do here is have the dad be an obvious figure of just like I feel like we could, in order to fix it, we should double down his anger.
Yes,
Like
exactly.
make him so like he doesn't want to be, but he could be an abusive husband or dad, but he's trying to improve himself. And then that parallel would come on later on when he's the Wolfman, where he's still this angry, like roided up monstrosity, but he's still trying to reel it in. But his family's still terrified of him. I feel
Exactly.
like
And
that might not be the best, but this is just me thinking in like 10 seconds. I feel like we're thinking more about this movie than the actual writers.
I agree. And that's why the first point I kind of made earlier, I don't understand why we moved the film from the 1995 opening because Blake's father, Grady, that's who Grady was. You saw his anger, you saw him trying to protect his son. So why not just tell that story of Grady turning into a wolf man and his son being terrified of him? Tell that dynamic. So I felt Grady was a better character than Blake. Yet we decided to move on to tell Blake's story, and he was immediately less interesting than Grady.
Yeah, they had the angle where it's just like, oh yeah, my father, he was a nutcase and he had really angry anger issues and he scarred me so much to where I left him and never looked back. And I actually didn't look back because he's just gone for the rest of the movie.
Yeah. And I was like, even that setup, that opening scene was probably the most engaging, the film was when you're in the woods with, young Blake and his father Grady, and they're encountering the wolf man, which you don't know is just a mange man at that point in time because they don't show you anything. So they're encountering mange man, in the woods, and it's effective. There's tension. And I feel if we just stay there, the story is better. Well, one more thing I think you might be able to fix with the script. as we mentioned earlier, is the lack of victims for the mange
Oh
man.
yeah, we sort of brought that up earlier on, didn't we? Well, how like they're just isolated in the middle of nowhere in the forest, and there's no victims.
Yeah, so what you have is kind of a slow, paced film where you see the guy transforming into Mange Man, but he doesn't really do anything because there's no one around. And that's
Yeah,
just kind of inherently a boring story.
we're not asking for another Friday the 13th where it's just like, oh, just dumb kids just going around just being stupid and just having premarital sex and all that junk and just being killed later on. We're not asking for that. We're just asking for more than nothing, which is what we got.
Yeah, and I would honestly rather see the version that you just described than this because that would be something. That would have something to visually see at least. This has nothing. I would say instead of going to watch this film, I would truly recommend people check out the original Wolfman with either Lon Chaney Jr. or, the reboot. So don't watch Mange Man, watch the Wolfman with Benicio del Toro. That's my final recommendation.
Yeah, my recommendation just watch Invincible. It's a really good. It's a good Amazon series.
Yeah. And so that's it for this episode of Movie Postmortem. Don't forget to like and subscribe and give us 5 stars because even bad podcasts deserve a good review. Remember, whether it's good, bad, or just a guilty pleasure, every movie deserves a postmortem. Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time. Watch Invincible.